Hello.
Howdy.
How's it going?
It's going well. How's it going with you?
Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. I'm excited to I'm branching out. I used to chat with Defender every week. It's really nice to bring new people in and kind of get to know them. So thanks for agreeing to jump on and chat with me.
Totally, yeah. I'm actually not too familiar with your uh, institution you're building.
Yeah. The it's sort of ironically called podcaster call because like one of the third ones that we did, we were like, is this a podcast or is it just a call? It started off with me and Defender just jumping on like a 2 hour call and recording that and posting it, and so it's basically been that ever since. So we just get on and talk about whatever. We get into it like last week, kind of got into it with Paula on like gender wars, porn, blue red button stuff. So it's like whatever you want to talk about, whatever's on your mind, I'm game for. And we could just kind of
Yeah,
go all over the map.
totally. Yeah. To start with, I'm curious, what got you into doing this? What is your passion underlying this podcast
It's a
recall?
good, it's a good question. For many years, so I started like goofing around with podcasts back in I want to say 2022 with a couple of friends of mine. And the idea was always like, hey, you want to have these really interesting discussions and kind of open it up to the world and kind of invite more people who are like-minded to kind of participate in that. And I've been really interested in less asymmetric forms of that, right? So like, let's jump on a call, anyone can come in and participate rather than like, this is a formal podcast and we try to interview famous people and go down the list of things that they normally talk about. So
Mm.
that's my dream. And I think if I were to like project that out, it's like I want to go around the world meeting people in the nooks and crannies and getting to know like what is your life like? Like who the heck are you and what drives you? Because I think yeah, the human experience is similar in a lot of ways, but vastly different, even from person to person. And I really want to like call those into view and have people understand that like the person that you're standing next to is like you in many ways, but really unlike you in ways that would probably surprise and maybe even frighten you, in terms of like your own self knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's um, a pretty decent summarization of my passion driving my projects. It just ends up operating under a different manifestation, I suppose.
Right.
Talk about the differences among people. My main passion for many years now, over a decade, has been psychotypology or like personality types, like MBTI, Enneagram type stuff. And
Exciting.
could, can we swear on here? What's
Yeah, of course. You
okay?
say whatever you want. Just
Ancient
no
book.
no calls to
Yeah,
violence.
totally. Um, but yeah, it's also my passion for the to illuminate the beauty in the diversity of humanity that I feel is, as you know, it's spoken of for millennia, obviously, but there, I just feel like we're still only scratching the surface. There's like
Totally.
there's so much just right there, and these systems have been relegated to the side academically and scientifically because of their sort of intractability through most modern scientific methods due to the fact that the object of study is not directly observable. you know
Yeah.
how how does Joshua think, or how like what does it even mean? Like what shape would an answer to that question even have? And that kind of thing is very foundationless sort of mode of inquiry that I'm hoping to develop and see mature in my lifetime so that I can have some people to talk about it with.
That's cool. I think like also there's a little bit of reflexivity in there. It's like the system that you're using to evaluate how is Joshua different is itself just as much of a worthy of study as the thing that you're studying. And so it's like trying to use clay to shape clay.
Totally. No, it's that's another thing is that the a lot of the barriers to seeing these sorts of things clearly is so distorted through the pervasive, unconscious, like egoic motivation I have to see myself a certain way. And because
Mm,
humans are built, I believe, with um, an
yeah.
innate sort of pattern matching empathy, the fact that you are just like everyone is vaguely re-shaped and so I can't see something parallel to myself that includes something that I reject in myself without
Right.
being sort of forcing myself to like look at something like, oh, looks like Joshua and I have this pattern that is ugly in Joshua, but wait, that would mean it's ugly in me. Oh no.
Yeah, yeah. Like even if you're seeing it, like the systems of self-protection, I guess an ego try to like recharacterize it even as it's being observed. I
Absolutely.
I I run into that daily because I'm like constantly trying to uncover these things in myself, and like as I'm describing it for, friends or whoever, it's like I could sort of feel the words that I'm choosing, like kind of navigating that inner space of like what's okay to say, what sounds good or sounds bad. But it goes in both directions because there would be an inclination to characterize it as overly bad, right? To condemn it, even if it's in me, right? And that even feels wrong. Like there's this sort of, I think, I think most people have this, but like a sense of when you're trying to describe something that you feel, there's a sense of like that word isn't quite right and this word isn't quite right, and you're kind of like trying to navigate this inner space. And it's like even going into like this is bad is not right, just as much as like this is good and I'm a good person for it. It's like no, it's something else. It's something undefined.
It is.
Cool. Well, I'm really excited about the personality test stuff. This I'll start sharing my screen, and we can, if you're up for it, we can jump into like different things. So here's Paula actually got me to do this one. She posted this, and I found this like really interesting. It went through
Mm.
a bunch of different things, so like the ocean traits, some other stuff that I'm not super familiar with, like NB Myers
Yeah.
Briggs MBTI, and like some of these other ones are like the long tail of like what they can go into. So I'm not sure how much you reach for those, but the Enneagram has been one that I've been paying a lot of attention to lately, and
Yeah.
realizing that it's an interesting distribution. It's not just one and like one wing or whatever. Like I think that's really interesting.
Totally. Yeah, the Enneagram is the has been somewhat the main focus of mine for many years now, since at least 2021 or 2019 maybe. And
Yeah,
it's have you learned much about its origins with its
I thought it was monks or something that came up with it.
yeah, so it's it very regularly gets its lineage inflated by any sort of resonance or correspondence that is that rhymes with Enneagram in history and is used to sort of provide a sense of like prestige, basically like, oh, these are the ancient fathers that passed down this wisdom. Yeah.
Okay.
In my sort of emerging rhetorical strategy here, I think it's important to treat these symbolic psychotechnologies as synthetic constructions and to allow the formal I don't know, like banality, I don't know if that's a word, um, to be as sort of clinical and unsexy as math is, while still regarding it in ways that I suppose actually math it often is regarded as a portal or a mirror to something that is more transcendent, that is more even embodied in a way. I think there is a way
Yeah.
that math pervades the like uh, daily life of mathematicians in ways that isn't exclusively disembodied as it might seem.
Interesting. Embodied math. I like. Can you say more on that? Like, in what ways does it pervade their lives, or how do you see that?
Um, so I really like this one of the most famous physicists from uh, the last century, uh, Richard Feynman, who I think has the same cognitive type as me, and he talks about uh, it's a I think his film special is like a pleasure to imagine or something similar. He talks about um, how his friend can see this flower and he feels that he can appreciate its beauty, its aesthetic refinement, and the poetry of the flower and whatnot to a greater degree than Feynman, the physicist, is able to. And Feynman says, "No, I don't think that's a total fair accounting. Like, I think you are able, perhaps, even granting that you're better able to like encounter the poetry of the flower, you are leaving a lot more on the table that I'm able to see, whether through the biological lens of this relationship it has that the flowers evolved colors for bees to be seen and generating questions of, uh, okay, so what kind of colors do bees see? How does that work? Or even the like the constant phi, which is maximally irrational and dictates things like the spread of leaves in a or pine or whatever those little spikes are in a pine cone or a flower and whatnot. And I think that there is a even speaking from my own experience, as somebody who has a very mathematically structured mind, if not particularly gifted in formal maths, is that you see patterns and then you can project mathematics onto them and sort of watch the mathematics unfold in a sense in concert with the real world unfolding. There is just the same as you can imagine a beat in a club song or something. Just, and there is especially for electronic music, there is often a lot of mathematical structure to the music that you're experiencing that you can intuitively engage with as a graph or whatever sort of thing you want.
Right, right. I think that makes sense. So it's like the way I'm visualizing it is like you sort of see or observe something, and then you have this sort of these cognitive footholds from either math or some kind of formal structure that gets kind of placed over it, and it like the way that I was looking at it is like that allows you to sort of pursue it even further. It's like the thing that comes to mind is like the math is a stent, in the vein of whatever the thing is. It's like we can travel even deeper into whatever it is we're observing, get into like the nooks and crannies, and that's something that excites me a lot.
Beautifully put. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely how I see it. And I think that speaks directly to the sort of um, concern that is often levied against this formalizing impulse, this sort of uh, measuring the marigolds, sort of lambasting of like, oh, you're so busy making marks in your notebook that you forgot to like breathe the mountain air, as like a sort of
Right.
dismissal or deflation of rational or structured inquiry. But I think it really fails to see that structure scaffolds discovery in a way that
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to get if you were just freestyling everything all the time. To return to the music example, which is a domain that I love to return to for examples, as it is so intermixing of so many domains, is that if there weren't a shared musical scale between us as we sought to like play together and jam together, then we wouldn't have any basis. We wouldn't have enough in common to have the type of conversation that provides for
Right.
expectations that can be broken. And it is through this shared organizational structure that is limiting in a way that we are able to enchant and mystify and set up this push and pull dynamic that is the essence of being in my view. And it's a,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's probably the most important reason why we need, stable structures that we can scaffold with. It's like, how the hell are we going to share these complex inner sort of structures without something that we can agree on independently of whatever it is we're discovering, right? Words, language, visuals, math. So,
totally.
yeah, it's like you can explore a lot on your own. It reminds me of Mr. Free Solo over here, where
Yeah.
it's like he can get to places that a lot of people can't, right? Or wouldn't. And
Yeah.
yet, if he was putting down stakes, some people could follow him that wouldn't otherwise be able to.
Yeah. I'm not even intentionally calling so many musical metaphors to mind, but they just keep popping into my mind here.
Yeah.
There is this newspaper clipping I really love from this famous cellist who has chosen through his through the singularity of his focus on his particular instrument. He's not a multi-instrumentalist. He doesn't pretty good with the
Oh,
entire orchestra. He has spent
right.
90 years playing cello. And the journalist asks him, "You're 90 years old. Why do you still practice every day?" And
Yeah.
his reply comes simply as, "I feel I am improving." There's no
That's
ceiling.
beautiful.
Constrain yourself to one path, and that it still leaves you infinity.
Yeah. Well, I love that phrasing. I feel I'm improving. Like immediately it's like he has some sense. It's not just like I know I'm watching my skills, in this disembodied
Yeah.
way. It's like I feel the improvements. That's cool. Yeah, I
It's the
was I was
internal
thinking,
motivation.
hmm?
It's the internal motivation I think you're pointing to as well. The like
Oh yeah.
brings me joy. I like the feeling of pursuing mastery, and that feeling is sufficient for why.
Yeah. I want that for myself. Um, a minute ago when we were talking about sort of, I think like the cognitive scaffolding and the sort of embodied experience, the metaphor that comes to mind is like the mind is a really uh, like I see the mind and the body as resonators, right? And they sort of can exchange sound or shape, and the body has much bigger wavelength. It's like it's slower. It's all encompassing. The mind is like high acuity, so it can really shape these different things that then propagate down into the body in different ways. And it's like if you were trying to model and become intimate with the natural world, you'd want to leverage both, right? Like the body has an immediate intimacy with all of nature that we evolved into, which you can connect with. It's great. It's beautiful. It's our birthright. But then there's this sort of alien thing on top of it that can go just a little bit further and probably go a lot further, right? Depending on the tools and techniques you're using. And I think it harkens back to what you said of like we can use this to get to even greater levels. We can sort of wrap around, phenomena in a way and see it from different angles and appreciate it in kind of a layered way. I think that's really exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, there's actually the guy who, as far as we know, originally forged the Enneagram symbol in the late 1800s, G.I. Gurdjieff, who was a fascinating spiritual teacher in his own right. He talked about the three centers of intelligence of the body of man, of the feeling center, the thinking center, and the moving or body center. And he speaks specifically of them as operating at different frequencies, where your mind, he actually sort of inverts the rates, which I think under a certain lens is just as valid as what you just pointed to, which I also agree with. But he points to the
What
mind
does he say?
he operate the mind operates at a slow enough level for us to control, for us to direct, and the
Okay.
emotions operate
Just
much faster and
immediate.
are
Yeah.
drivers of like reactivity that are much harder to corral emotions, and the impulses of the body are constant and many and are the imposition of the will to constrain the impulses of the body is the origin of much dysfunction in the individual and collective life.
Yeah. No, it's like the mind is trying to make sense of all this stuff. I was listening to, like, I follow this teacher guy named Angelo. He does like non-dual teaching and stuff. And it was basically like the thoughts in the mind are just a sort of reaction. Actually, I think this was Michael Singer, the untethered soul guy. It was like the thoughts in your head are just a reaction to whatever's going on in your body. It's like trying to make sense. And so the way I see it is like your body's just feeling whatever it's feeling moment to moment, right? And some of it's physiological, some of it's related to stimula. And then your mind is this sort of scratch space that you like go up into and try and rotate the problem and like come up with some kind of solution that can then be fed back into the body. And sometimes it
That's,
works. A lot of times it doesn't. It just creates a lot of suffering. Where you're
hey,
just
I mean,
rapidly
um,
turning the Rubik's Cube until it's like red hot.
suffering is signal. That's how you know you're on your developing edge.
I like that phrase. I haven't heard that before. Suffering is signal. That's nice.
Hmm.
Yeah. This guy looks like quite a character, honestly.
Oh yeah, he was
I love the stash.
famously charismatic and perhaps more famously enigmatic. He
Mm.
would do things like construct circumstances for his school of students uh, to say, like, okay, we're going to do some landscaping. Team one, you go over there and build a pathway. Okay, now team two, you go over there and build a garden. And then he would like orchestrate them to collide with each other and see and like to present them opportunities to navigate their own conflicts that are arising and sort of give them an opportunity in a controlled environment to confront the arising patterns and whatnot. He
Yeah.
actually specifically called out. I sometimes mix up the adjectives and nouns. What was it? It was conscious, uh, no, intentional labor and conscious suffering, I think, or conscious labor and intentional suffering, one of the two. um, and I think what that points to is that the healthy and integrated metabolization of suffering is through a sort of love led conscious labor to attend to the generating source of that rather than conscious labors and intentional sufferings, rather than repress it or sort of be like, well, it's fine, or whatever. Return to the sort of mechanicality of the body, this waking sleep that most humans, he
Right.
claimed, were in at most times.
Right. That's crazy. Very, very fascinating, dude.
Absolutely, he's definitely got a little bit of Rasputin energy in terms of
Yeah, right.
turn of the century Armenian mystic that just sort of wandered into St. Petersburg just before the uh, takeover of the czars and sort of got a bunch of followers and then left there after World War One.
Fascinating. That's cool though. That's cool.
Yeah, It's nice to have a little bit of lore that goes a little deeper than Myers and Briggs.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious. We were talking about uh, this. Like, I
Mm.
thought this was cool. Like, just this sort of turn by turn thing. I've wanted this for Twitter for so long. The other day, I'll go on a little tangent here for a second. The other day, I posted this. I dumped. It's a ways back, but I dumped a bunch of my tweets from
Oh, I read
the
that. Yeah.
archive, the export, and got these really nice analysis. And the thing that I like about LLMs is like you can ask for so many different lenses. So I was asking to analyze this sort of form and shape, like almost like a musical analysis of like how does this flow versus like what are the words and the symbols that are being exchanged. You could almost imagine like the there's like a spatial analysis, right? Of like what are the words that are being exchanged? Like he said this symbol and you said that symbol, and it's totally devoid of time. Whereas this is more of a time-based analysis. Is like, well, how did the energy flow, and like how much was I saying, and how little was he saying, vice versa. It's
Have you
just like you
seen?
can dump them in and get so many cool analyses out of this magical calculator, language calculator.
It's truly magical. I have many times in life. I well, like many years ago, I was say like working in a factory and just I grew up watching Star Trek, and I like
Oh yeah,
would imagine like, man, imagine if
same.
I had a Star Trek computer, and it'd just be
Yeah,
like, ship's computer, how many miles of this wire have flowed through these rollers, and like just get some sort of
right.
omniscient answer. Be like, oh, that's like we grew up around the Earth so many hundreds of times. I'm like, man, crazy.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's it segues nicely back to the text idea. Have you seen the approach where it colors out, it like erases all the text from the text bubble and then leaves only the text bubble size and cadence and like who's double texting, who's like, and then to make a point about the shape of interaction as such.
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
I haven't seen that, but that sounds really interesting.
It's like
Because
imagine
it like
like three long texts and I just get a little bubble back and like that kind of that itself is signal that like you're writing a ton. I'm like, sure, damn that bro, that's
yeah,
crazy. Like
yeah, yeah. And it doesn't tell exactly what's going on, but it gives you a very different lens as to like the energetic relationship in that moment. And the more that you can look at that over time or kind of connect it to like different topics, for instance, right, you can get more of an understanding of like what's actually going on and what's actually being exchanged. A lot of times we think, especially like scientifically, we think it's about exchanging information, but it's much more about exchanging energy, I think, or pattern matching and syncing.
to I would be less uh quick to throw out or rule out that what we have been describing so far is not still exchanging energy. There are
Yeah,
these sort of emergent patterns, these chemical signatures of your interaction with person X over person Y over time are
yeah,
themselves uh, symbolic patterns that you can compute over just as validly
totally.
informational. It's a sort of, I just asked someone last night actually if they believe that emotions are tokenized. Was that you that I asked? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
emotions are tokenized.
Yeah, like do you if thoughts are tokenizations of human experience in the analog, are how much pre-verbal do we have to go before it is no longer a tokenization?
Yeah, that's a really
'Cause I'm
interesting
not
question.
convinced that emotions are are sufficient to go like underneath. You know what I mean? It just may be something that's very
Yeah,
vague, very
yeah, I
what's
feel like
yeah.
under emotion, there's just patterns of uncorrelated sensation, right? And the emotion is just the carrier wave, where that a bunch of things get wrapped up into in a common self-sustaining kind of thing.
Yeah. Hmm. That's really magical. What you're giving me all sorts of little insights already. Your framing of
Yes.
this like uber high dimensional, like hyper multiplicitous
Right.
bodily sensation, like field of bodily sensation where you're constantly getting tons of signals from every nerve cell all over your skin
Right.
that gets synthesized, distilled, alchemized, if you will, into the
Yeah.
sort of emotional repatterning that
Hmm.
is like a sort of second order or something
Yeah.
effect. How do I
Yeah.
feel about these sensations? And then,
Yeah. Well,
right,
yeah, there's the how do I feel about what I'm feeling, right? And that sometimes plays into making it more stable, right? Like resistance tends to perpetuate a feeling.
I would actually deny that feeling about feeling is a feeling. I actually was just about to ask, how do you feel about the definition of thinking as feeling about turned on your own feelings? Because I believe in a sense that is um,
That.
a, a worthy of investigation sort of framing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean it's so the resolution that's funny so funny. The resolution, I think, of the content of thought, of the nature of thought seems to be much higher, at least in my internal experience, than my somatic resolution. So I have an inclination that thought is somatically patterned, right, and somatically held, but it's just like my physical awareness of my body is just too low for me to like see exactly. But I can feel how patterns of thought, types of thought are associated with, and a lot of it does happen in the head, but some of it is like a musical instrument. There's pinching elsewhere to like stabilize the wave. And so I could notice patterns of thought and how the thought correlates with this feeling, or not quite an emotion but a sense of tension and stuff. And so I would tend to agree. I think that thought and emotion and sensation are all, part of the same spectrum, and it's just like thought is way higher resolution, and so it's harder to differentiate from uh, what we're feeling in the body.
Hmm.
Or harder to correlate, sorry, at least for me.
Harder to correlate your thoughts or your.
Like the nature of thought, like if we put it into words, it's like, I don't
Hmm.
like, yappy dogs, right? It's like if I'm actually thinking that rather than holding that as a structure of an example, like
Hmm.
right now, like there's a difference actually, like in terms of where the thought appears. um like where do I feel that in my face or my head or my body? It's like what activates to sort of create that thought. And it also points to like a single thought, and they're not the same thing, but like a single thought that could be distilled into a phrase like I hate yappy dogs, right? Can be constructed in many different ways inside the body and the mind or the head. So my
I
intuition
mean,
tells me that it's there somewhere.
I I share the intuition certainly. Do you when you say it differs in form, are you thinking the substrate through which you process and then eventually generate the same linguistic statement, or do you mean that different linguistic formulations evoke subtly different generative experiences or like imply them?
Yeah, it's hard for me to decide like which leads, but it's when I say different in form, I think for like the same phrase, right? Like,
So, for example, in NLP, in the
yeah,
neuro-linguistic programming sense, not the natural language processing sense
yeah,
in
yeah.
this AI era.
Same thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, there is one of the first things that I noticed in people who were talking about it was the uh, way that they'll like hook into, okay, they'll ask you a question and be like my sense is that such and such, or like I feel like such and such, or I think such and such. You're sort of naively expressing the same sentiment, same propositional thing. You're like, oh, my perception is such and such, but the word that you chose generally uncritically or without sort of interrogating why you said I sense versus I feel versus I think is treated in NLP as indicative of signal, that there is something unconsciously different that I can discriminate in you when you say I
Yeah.
feel versus I think, and then engage you in a way that attunes to that implied underlying processing that wasn't necessarily visible to me before that.
Yeah. No, I would say that that totally checks out in my conception of it.
Mm.
It's like we have this sort of complex inner state, and we're trying to like almost like a Galton, was it Dalton board? Galton, the Gaussian distribution, like a pachinko thing, where it's like you're dropping the ball and it like bounces around and lands somewhere. It's like we're trying to collapse it into a lower dimensional thing. And it's like, oh, this word versus that word, it leans a little bit more in one direction than another. And the
That
interesting thing is like a lot of different things could be pulling on a specific word choice. It's hard to think of ourselves as separate from LLMs when I'm like conceiving of it this way, because it's like the substrate is totally different. Uh, Maybe even some of the way that these things are wired, but the principle of like needing to choose a word and being pulled in different directions, like that's LLM territory too.
Yeah, I literally was in the middle early this morning of experimenting with writing a post about this exact idea, this, and which I now am continuing to seek, like relayered and enriched in cyclical passes through these different tour of topics, even through this conversation so far. This um, dimensionality reduction for the purposes of our tractability in steering, that like, oh, I synthesize these sensations into emotions so that I can get a sense of what do I even like or dislike, what do I even want, and I synthesize those further, those impulses of like, ooh, want that, don't want that, into these thoughts that enable me to then, engineer my body shape in certain ways to bring about that desire.
Higher ice cream probability shapes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, yeah. I wanted to kind of like go through these. I'm not sure like, if you want to steer as well. I'm happy to hear what you're
No, I
thinking.
would love to go into the texting thing. There's one sort of theoretical element that I'm interested in touching on before moving past,
Yeah,
and then I would be
let's.
interested in segueing to more um, social, political, communal sort of orientations.
Sure.
I could talk forever about the theory, but
Yeah,
I like variety. I'm a prismatic kind of guy.
yeah.
What about the texting theory? How did you find it? First of all, was this were you put onto it by something else, or are you a redditor?
But this one, it may have been your post that I saw at first. I think
Oh, I thought I shared it
it's
from.
been
Okay, yeah,
it's been going around a couple of times. I've
got
seen
it.
it multiple times since then. But like this is reminiscent of what Defender was trying to do in his earliest. Whoops, Defender. I don't have his thing on
Free.
here of basic.substack. So like his earliest post.
There we go.
This is like a million years ago. It was his first um, internet of anatomy of an internet argument post. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but he went through and he created sort of a breakdown. Like he covered up the person's thing and did like a head to head analysis. I think it was this one.
Yep. Yeah. I believe that may have been the first time I saw.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
something like that. I think in a future one, it might have been. Oh, this interface is awful.
I'm thinking of your
Well,
image that you
yeah.
shared with me, which I can talk about while you search for what you're thinking of, where it
Yeah.
was
It was
it
this
directionally.
guy.
Directionally, we can say the same shape as that, but with verbose
Yeah.
commentary in the margins. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at?
Yeah. So this was Defender posts these things, right? Is sort of they're sort of like the lighthouses that draws people out. And then Matt comes in, right, with his reply, and Defender engages. So it's to get engagement. And this conversation kind of derailed a little bit. Blair came in and said, "No, that's not what's going on," with her read, and so they kind of go back and forth. And so I was reading this, and I get really frustrated reading uh, sort of these contentious interactions when it starts to feel like people are kind of talking past each other. There's not enough space, in between them uh, to really exchange good information. So I was like, let me try to characterize how I read this, right? And I think the whole motivation for this is like this marginalia here is what I'd like to see more of. This is what I would like to engage with. Maybe I don't want to read all this verbose stuff, but the mentality that goes into, hey, let's analyze this, let's slow down and try to orient towards how we're coming at this topic, right? Let's
Calibrate.
understand the shape of the topic before we just dive in and start firing salvos. Like that's what I want to see. So I think this signal that I'm sending out with this is probably a little bit of a tangent, but overall it's like
It all
less of
connects.
this pitter patter and more of the like, hey, why don't you introspect and tell me, you write your own margin here for what you were about to say,
Yeah.
right? So social network that did that would be interesting. Probably not as popular as Twitter, but
Or worse, more popular, that would be terrible.
oh no. Whoops.
Well, I just imagine a community that had this form structured in such a way to generate popular appeal would be terribly toxic. I can only imagine.
You think so? Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, yeah. There's this sort of policing, it's like it can be weaponized in a way that it goes totally against the where we're trying to go with this. But I like that, like I posted this and then Matt started engaging with me. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
How to practice
the
what you preach.
Failing to see you're contradicting yourself because you got distracted. I loved this. So here's what's interesting. I posted this as like yearning towards this level of discourse, and then he gave it back to me, and I was like, oh shit, this isn't actually what I wanted, because it's like now he's just replying in more long form, but it's still the same quality of like projection rather than self-analysis. I see that she's more interested in this, and it's like that
Yeah.
creates a more contentious thing. I'm like trying to go back and forth. I just kind of pittered out at the end. I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
kind of
there's
funny.
a real challenge, I think, in learning without guidance how to
Yeah,
pattern interrupt these things. And I am
yeah,
pleased to see, find, at least in my own experience, witness the growth and popularity of these modalities. Perhaps they were always popular and I just was not interested. Um, but I think there is a
more
real
visible maybe.
growing hunger for things like circling or authentic relating.
Mm.
At the last Vibe Camp, I hosted a session called Cybernetic Contemplative Psychotechnologies. And it essentially did what you were intuitively doing earlier of like, oh, where is this sentiment, I hate yappy dogs, located at in my body? Where do I feel this hatred for yappy dogs? And
Yeah,
the TLDR of the session was essentially a little practicum on a um,
fascinating.
heuristic guided way of trying to discriminate your centers as a way of applying dimensional reduction to make aligning yourself integration through all your different sort of cacophony of competing wills into alignment to say, okay, what does my body want? What does my heart want? What does my mind think, see, whatever, it's that, and have a way of generating emergently from, okay, and before you know it, you just start saying things that are so true that you had no idea was going to come out of your mouth until you're just sort of like, whoa, I do think that. Whoa.
My goodness. Where did that come from?
It's a beautiful form of discovery for me. And I think
Yeah,
it
that's really
is
cool.
yet another facet of the same thing of the texting theory is
Yeah.
essentially a dimensionality reduction on the marginalia verbosity. That you're having all this
Right.
text wall. If you're kind of wanting to be a casual engagement, it's like, I'll be honest, I still haven't read all the text on there. I've
Yeah.
got some
Yeah. Yeah.
ADHD. I was like, there's probably a lot of juice in there. If I sunk into it, could really get into it. But
Yeah.
much easier for me
Well,
to
the
say, good move, great move, blunder.
yeah, yeah. Well, the interesting thing is like, and this is where this format breaks down. It's like this text is for me to try to figure out, am I perceiving this, correctly? Am I perceiving this in this way? Like figure out how I'm perceiving it, and then try to serialize that perception in a way that somebody else could align with. It's like, oh yes, I agree, or like, no, that's totally wrong. Technically, when Matt replies and says she doesn't care about truth, that is him doing that, right? It's not connected to what she said. So you're just sort of, there's too much dimensionality reduction in that. It's like, oh, she doesn't care about truth overall. It's like, yeah, but like, what are you perceiving that's leaving you with that conclusion? Like, I'm trying to run a trace on that.
Yeah,
Truth is
you're
not linear.
essentially
Great.
talking about something I would call like auditability. You're saying, okay,
Yeah.
here are the steps that
Like
I
this.
took by tracing them into some discrete number of steps that are able to be dealt with. You're able to say, okay, step one, good. Step two, good. Step three, okay, here's where we differ. Now we can limit the sort of universe of inquiry to like, okay, just this step is the thing where the problem is. It's
Yeah.
like debugging interpretation. And that's, if you remember the image I sent you in DMs on Twitter for the
Yeah.
that accidentally one shot meta mockup of the data schema that I've been talking about. I think that's a great example of exactly the direction I am trying to move into to build infrastructure for the gamification of consensus building around interpreting what actions mean in some intersubjectively grounded sense robustly. This example, just to give it some context, is some empty data, some made up stuff that I put in just to kind of get a sense of how it might be structured. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, if you rammed my goalie and now I'm going to go and I'm going to skate over your stick and break it so that as like a punishment, how am I going to interpret that action? How can I split that up? Okay, well, on one level, there is the hockey game, and that which we all agree, the hockey game
Yeah.
exists. At this point, you skated over the stick. That also is a thing that we can agree on. Skating over the stick right after the goalie gets hit, generally everyone agrees that that's kind of like a tit for tat sort of thing. And then you kind of increasingly abstract it until you're like, ah, you did this because you are invested in upholding your team loyalties and you want to signal like, fuck with one of us, you fuck with all of us. Or maybe you just were a pure emotional expression and you're like, you motherfucker, and you're just motivated. There are many ways you can interpret it, but by branching at every point and making your decisions explicit, they can be analyzed and um, wow, that can form a sort of worrying set of structures that may feel uh, at risk of being leveraged into like oppressive structures at scale, certainly. I do think that without any structure, there is a latent oppression that we all bear the costs of, and that it is only through rehabilitating whatever structure develops pathologies into a liberatory structure that is, I think, in two words, kind of my mission is to facilitate liberating structure that is, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention that and bring up the example of hockey. I was just reading this article. Let's see if this comes up that my ex had sent me. And I think one of the core arguments is that like this oppressive structure exists right within men's hockey, right? That they're calling this out. It's kind of a feminist read, but by not being even aware of, like, they interviewed some of the players, and the players would say like, oh yeah, this thing happened and whatever. Like they weren't recognizing some of these things as problematic. They were just kind of dropping facts, and it's like some seriously problematic things happened. Like I'm trying to see if it hockey players not publicly revealing their struggles.
I'll say
Yeah, there's just some
my
examples in here. Go ahead.
I was going to say my hermeneutical posture toward this
Yeah.
space of analysis has me waiting to see the ground truth before simply taking your word that these were
Oh yeah.
genuinely problematic. Perhaps someone murdered someone, and I will certainly agree, but
Like one of the ones that was in here was like somebody was having, here it is, had a coach do body shots off a 15-year-old girl at a rookie
okay.
party, and I'm
Well,
like, there's
that's
no
not
frame in
enough
which I can
hockey.
normalize that. Yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
and but like the way that that happened and the way that they described it, as far as I can tell, is like, oh yeah, that's just a thing that happened. What in the world? Yeah, yeah. Like
Team building.
somebody
Wow.
gave a coat
Okay.
hanger as a secret singer Santa thing.
Yeah, I
So
was
it's like,
thinking we're gonna get knocked out.
yeah. So some of these things are like happening, and because you're just in it and you're not like analyzing it or not sort of seeing the system, it just perpetuates itself. And I think these are like really troublesome and bothersome examples. The sort of hockey retaliation is a little less extreme, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, is tit for tat good for the sport? Is it not good for the sport? What's the effect it's having on sort of sportsmanship versus game quality? If we can't even see how it's happening because it's going too fast and we're just on to the next thing, it's just getting baked in more and more as we go. So I think the point that you made, or at least I think that you made, was if we can analyze these things and actually break it down and see the causal relationships, we have the hope of changing it. We have the hope of understanding what is its effect. Do we even want to change it? I'm like, yes, we need to see more clearly if we ever want to understand the structure of the sort of pattern that we're on, and decide, are there other patterns that we'd like to go to? What would be the cost of moving to a pattern like that? We might not be
Can't
able to do all
navigate
those
too well in the dark.
computations. Yeah, exactly. It's a nice reduction.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm all about map making. Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
think maps of the future.
yeah. No, they're definitely integral. Um,
Wink, wink.
so yeah, there's a couple other things, and they're kind of running up on time. A couple other things. Have you seen any of these guys that I posted last year? This
I
one
don't
was,
recognize it. No.
okay. So I was taking whole threads and dropping them into ChatGPT and asking it to decompose the thread into logical arguments
Hmm.
and associating people with the arguments and relating the arguments to each other. So if one argument sort of extends or supports another, it's a green arrow, and the degree of that extent or support is represented by the number.
Hmm.
If
Like a
it
phylogenetic
contradicts,
tree for opinions.
sure, yeah, yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, if it contradicts or kind of undermines an argument, then it gets a red arrow, um, and so on and so forth. And so, like, this was a way to decompose what would otherwise be, a gigantic thread with a lot of crosstalk into something that you could sort of make sense of. And now, my dream was to have you be able to wade into the discourse through this interface. So it's like I can rationalize
Hmm.
separate
Hmm.
bedrooms can be healthy and natural, and say, I could say, you know what, I can see some circumstances in which it is. Like I can put my argument here and then see it actually split up and move. Like part of what you said goes here and part of what you said goes here. And you're actually across the spectrum, or you're totally on this and all these people seem crazy to you. And so you can kind of understand logically or rationally where you fall.
Absolutely. That sounds like a hella sick idea, dude.
It was a fun one. Yeah, yeah. And I
I just
went a
the
certain
notion
extent
that
on
you
that.
could build this into some hypothetical social media site with infinite compute available, where you can just
Yes.
have the discourse be embedded implicitly and like natively in the
Right.
semantic space in a sense, where you're going to say,
Yeah.
okay, here's the semantic space of this discussion, and there are these people over here discussing this point of detail, and this, and within
Right.
that, this finer point is being explored, and you can kind of navigate fractally from that sort of omniscient view to see, okay, where do I want to start going in and getting to work.
Exactly. Exactly. I think the reason, like, I fizzled out with this. I had a couple of other ones that I did. Like this one was interesting as well. I think that one's kind of less detailed than some of these other
Is
ones.
that the site? What is the name of that? Polis, Pol.is.
No, but that sounds nice. This is just a random Claude artifact that I made.
Mm.
But this was similar in the sense that I was taking people's tweets, pushing them through this sort of analysis. So coming up with different axes, like conceptual to literal, consequentialist to deontological. And
Oh,
then when you put them on the graph, you can see them kind of split out, and you can actually put them into groups. Metaphilosophical, philosophical ironist. What was the other one? Cynical pragmatist, right? And then when you change the axes, I'm not sure if I did. Yeah, so you go in there and you change the axes. You can see them shift around, and it's like, oh, these guys are actually right next to each other in this space, but far away in this way. Like look at how they're all clumped up together near the thing, but these two groups split out.
absolutely.
So
I mean,
that was
this
another
idea
view.
of figuring out which axes to employ in the
Yeah,
structuralization of a given space to facilitate the type of analysis that you want to do for your purposes, and the mutual arbitrarity of which axes are chosen is
yeah,
exactly what I am in the middle of, like a multi-week long, multi-year long,
amazing.
multi whatever you want to say. And it's that's kind of the basis of typological structure to me, that that these, like, in the sense of like political compass, is a typologically structured space that you choose these
Yeah,
generative
yeah, yeah.
axes and then
Is there
plot.
like a
And then
3D? Is there like a 3D political
there's a
compass
4D,
at
there's a
some point?
5D.
Oh God. I just remember like, the capitalism, socialism.
I'm only interested in additional dimensions to the extent that they come paired with names for all the
Yeah.
cells. And because as soon as you get like
Hmm.
5 dimensions, you're like, you got a ton of cells you got to name, and no one's going to do that. So if you can't be
Ugh.
bothered, I can't either.
Yeah, there's a reason why we all operate in three dimensions. It's like
Yeah.
it starts to get run away pretty fast. Um, yeah, so I had these two, and I liked them. It was fun to use them, but I think the fact that nobody else seemed interested or motivated to like leverage it as part of their workflow, as part of their like, hey, I'm gonna every time I have a big thread pop up, I'm gonna do this and have this analysis and put this forward. It just felt like it became a fun toy, rather
Mhm.
than I think I shared with you the post, maybe.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
this
just
one.
a matter of sufficiently engineering your packaging, I think, your
Yeah, I think you're right.
productization, which I've been learning a lot about here in entrepreneurial New York.
Well, hopefully you'll surpass me on that front quite soon, and then you can teach me how to do it
I'm excited
correctly.
about your exact project. I would love to see what,
Yeah,
if you're still interested in it. It sounds like a deeply sort of
I think
resonant
it has
tool.
roots, it has legs. So I think one
Wonderful.
of these things is up on GitHub. C/J. Uh,
Yeah,
let's
the
see.
depth of convergence there is pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, airdrop. Oh, interesting. It was discourse map. So there's some of it up here, but I would be interested in like repackaging it and at least turning it into something that could easily be run locally, so that if other
Mm,
people, because this technically this works, but this is like an old version. It doesn't do all those
sure.
things. So yeah, I'd be happy to like go back and straighten that out and share that with you. And if you're interested in like learning from it or building off of it,
Certainly.
I'd be so
I,
happy.
I mean, like, yeah, if I find it difficult to motivate myself along single paths to practice cello for 90 years. But if I am
Yeah.
practicing with someone, I find it a lot easier. So if
Yeah.
this is something that you're passionate about, I my passion naturally it amplifies in that
Absolutely.
direction. So
Cool.
yeah,
I think we could really spur each other on in that way. So I'm excited for that possibility.
yeah,
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm really delighted with this chat. I hope we can have more like this. I think this is really interesting. And in my mind, I'm just thinking like, yeah, we could really build some stuff, and like these can be more of like hands-on kind of kind of discussions where we're like, here's what we're working on and describing how that worked out, trying to
yeah, yeah.
publicize a little bit. So
Absolutely.
cool.
Get that hype train rolling.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really
Thank
delighted
you.
that you were willing to do this, and I really like the conversation. So thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah, love hearing your perspective on things, man. I think there's a lot of natural, a naturally positive chemical signature in our in the shape of our interactions.
I'd call it that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, you have a great day, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Peace.
Cheers.